FBA TV, my name is Hayden. Let's dive into this video. I want to talk about the hardest part of selling on Amazon. Now, this isn't a usual mindset that I take. I don't usually look at hard things or the hard part of life or the stressful part of life. It's just not a mindset that I allow myself to have. I usually look at the bright side of everything. I really try to. However, I understand that it's important for me to go over the hardest things when running an Amazon business so that newbies that are watching this video understand what to expect. So here's my summary of the hardest parts of running an Amazon FBA business that does multiple thousands per month. And well, yeah, let's dive into it. Let me explain. So then, as I say, you might know what to expect as a new seller. So without further ado, I think, look, this is all personal, right? This is your personal preference on what you think the hardest. Some people will think that the things that I think are hard are not hard because they've either created a system and process or got a staff member to do it for them, or it just doesn't bother them. They enjoy doing it themselves. So this is personal preference, but this is just what I personally find the hardest in the business. So let's kick off with number one, and this isn't preset, by the way. This is just coming to my mind. I like to do all my videos like this, just as if I'm being interviewed by someone. I just like to talk about it as I go with the flow. So number one for me by far is the cash flow. When you're running an Amazon business, I think a lot of people share their profits on the dashboard, whether it's Seller Board, Seller Toolkit, all that sort of stuff. But the profit that you actually see, although it could be, if it's worked out correctly, the net profit, once you figure that out yourself, although it's net profit, it's not like us Amazon sellers are just paying ourselves that net profit straight away. You're not paying yourself. If you make $6,000, like say last month, I think we did about 6,500 net profit, according to our dashboard. I'd never share my figures, by the way, so that was a little insight for you there, as into what our business is doing. So we did about 6,500 net last month, for example. Let me just tell you an example. That's after everything. That's net profit, not gross. Gross is much higher. That's net profit. So that's after we paid for everything, roughly. Yeah. Here's the thing, though. I'm not paying myself $6,500. Firstly, you've got tax to come off that at the end of the year, which is a given. But we're trying to offset a lot of that, obviously, buying stuff for the business expenses, etc. But here's another thing. We got to reinvest that money. So if you're a service-based business and you've got minimal outgoings, you could probably pay yourself 5.5 or something like that, $6,000. If you were just like a gardener on your own and you've only got to pay for fuel for your truck, for example, to drive around, and your lawnmowers, you might be able to pay yourself $6,000, 5,800. Although we've made it, it's sort of just in the system, it's in the business, so you don't actually pay yourself that. So when people say, oh, I only need to get my business to 2,000 net profit and then that replaces my income and I can leave, well, actually, you probably need to get your business to 6,000 if you're selling on Amazon. You need to make 6,000 net so that you can take the 2,000 out without it affecting the growth of the business. Because otherwise, if I was to take that 6,500 net profit, for example, last month, pay myself, that would really hurt us, like our growth of the business, because it would just slow down progress. Although we've made it, some products have only just been ordered, so they're on the way to our prep center. Some products have already, they're already in transit to the fulfillment centers and could take weeks. Some of them are sitting in stock in the fulfillment centers and not sold. Some items have refunds, so you've got to take into account all that sort of stuff. You've got to take into account the account level reserve on Amazon, so Amazon's going to hold a certain amount of money. It's just going back in the system. And if you're to take out 100% of the profit that you make each month, you're going to affect the business, because you can't run this like a service-based business. You can't run this like a coaching business where 99% of it is profit other than advertising, etc. Let's pretend a coach doesn't advertise and they make 5,000 in 1 month. I mean, they're making 5,000. That's net. Although we're making it as Amazon sellers and e-commerce sellers and product-based businesses, it's just going back in the system. So you've got to pay yourself a salary, but it can't be all of the money that you make. So that's probably the most challenging thing that I find. We're doing well, but when you're doing well, i.e. getting a lot of sales, what people don't realise is that to keep that growth and to grow more, you've got to invest more. So although we're making more and more and more, generally when you make more and more and more in the early days, you're actually spending more and more and more in a stock-based business to actually get to the next level. Therefore, you constantly feel poor. So that's quite a hard part of the business, and I know a lot of seven-figure sellers can relate to that. But I think to get around that, you've got to just pay yourself that salary and just forget about it. You know, you've got to put yourself on a salary and then keep going up in increments. So I think I pay myself sort of a third of what we earn in the business generally, but depending on how much we're reinvesting. So I didn't do last month because we were investing into Q4. I hardly paid myself anything last month because I wanted to keep it in the business to reinvest into Q4, and then I'll pay myself a big bonus at the end of Christmas. So depends how you want to run your business, but all I'm saying is that's quite a hard part of the business. I would say not hard, you know, but you just got to be aware of that something. Yeah, and I would say another thing is obviously competition. Like being the most competitive, being the most, it's got the most traffic on the website, Amazon obviously, it's got the most traffic and the most sales on any third party platform in the world, but with that comes competition. Obviously everyone wants a slice of that pie. So if you launch a product and it goes really well, trust me, within a couple of months someone else is going to launch something that could be better than yours, but hopefully not, and you're going to have to keep making it better. So I've got products. I used to be literally rated number one on a lot of categories. I was like, you know, number one. A lot of my products have been number one, top spot. Amazon, you know, Amazon badge. What's the badge called? Amazon's Choice badge. And now I'm not, because I've been knocked off by the competition. So now what I'm having to do is deal with this stress, for one, because obviously it's affected our sales. And there's always that slight worry that, you know, this is going to keep happening. Eventually the business is going to die. But then you've got to realise that it's not going to if you keep pushing it forwards, because you've got to keep growing the business, keep innovating, keep adapting, because if you're not innovating, then you're dying. You innovate or you die. So what I'm doing right now is constantly having to revamp any good sellers that we have. I have to revamp them, if it's on my own private label type stuff, and bring them back up to a level to compete with them again. And it's the same with my online arbitrage business, you know. So we've got two sections. We've got the online arbitrage and the private label type stuff. With the online arbitrage, obviously you get competition as well, but that's it. That comes in a way of price tanking, you know, because we're all on the same listing. It's not like I can just improve them. We have to just wait for the price to recover or not sell that product again. So look, that's another hard part of the business. Whether you're doing online arbitrage, whether you're doing private label, there's competition in all walks of life on this business. But you know the thing that I say to myself now, especially with the brand, especially the private label stuff, I think, look, I'm going to be the best, and you have to be the best in what you do. Now, if you're not doing private labels type stuff and you're doing online arbitrage, then you have to be the best in your replen systems. You have to be the best in your making sure you've got the best prep fees so that you can compete the best. You have to be the best in terms of your systems and your processes to make sure that you can make the most profit. You know, even if they are going to undercut.
What's going on? Quick introduction here, just to introduce my new sponsor. So I'm now sponsored by Prepared For You. I've been using this prep center for a fair few months now, and they've been fantastic. Okay, if you are interested in trying them out, I've got a link below. Click on the link below, the Prepared For You link, and you can get £50 off your first month with them. Type in Hayden into the coupon code when you're signing up to your desired package, and you can get £50 off. As I say, really recommend them. I've enjoyed their service, and yeah, very efficient, very communicational, and I will see you in the next video. Let's dive in.
Have you got a backup plan? What happens if someone undercuts you? You have to make sure that you go ahead and you have a backup plan for that. Are you going to stop selling it? Are you going to buy other stock? Are you going to wait for it to recover? Are you going to, just do small margins and do high volume? So that's another thing. You've got to counteract that. So I think that's the second hardest thing, is definitely the competition on Amazon. And I think the third hardest thing for me personally is the fact that because it's not a real business. For example, for me, I really like to talk to people. I'm a very social person. As you know, I've got this YouTube channel and I love to talk to people. And I actually prefer listening to people, believe it or not. I know I talk a lot on this channel, but it's sort of part of the job, isn't it, as a YouTuber and content creator. I like to listen to people. I like to hear what people are saying and understand people's opinions and build relationships with people. You don't do that as much in an e-commerce company in the early days, especially when you work from home a lot, like I do. So I think I do. I in some ways, like I definitely will in the future. I thought about even starting our own shops for the brand in the future, or starting my own gym in the future, which is completely different industry. So I wouldn't do that until we were really, really solid in this business in a few years. Even more solid than we are now. But I think the issue I have is the fact that it's quite isolating sometimes. So I've always wanted a business that you can physically see, almost like, because I used to have a landscaping business that was multiple vans, and I don't wish I had that back at all. I much prefer my life now, financially, and I can work from anywhere in the world, and it's great. But it has its downfalls, and sometimes it's nice to have a business that you can actually see, that you can actually feel. Like if I owned a health club, for example, I've actually thought about opening one up in my local area soon, getting a few investors, getting that together because there's a gap in the market. Then I can actually build relationships with members. I can work on improving the visual side of things in the club. But then you've got to deal with the fact that that's in one location, and you might have to go there to sort out problems. You've got to have a lot of staff to deal with that. There's pros and cons of this, but I'm just saying that's one of the things that I find quite hard. The fact that you have to put up with the fact that it's isolating sometimes. So they're the sort of the three hardest things that I find running my Amazon FBA business. Let me know in the comments what you think the hardest things are. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.